As you could see in the previous video, Neon has a few issues with waiting at the door. He likes to just push right through. He doesn't care who's there, whether there's 1 dog, 7 dogs, me, my husband, any of us. He is going to be the first one out the door and he's not waiting for anything. This wasn't always an issue, but it has grown into a bigger issue than what it was before. And with having all the classes that we have here, I can't have him escaping on my husband if he goes out the door to go do something, which has happened in the past. So what I've decided to do is train Neon how to properly wait at a door for me so that I can go out the door without him rushing me. So what you're gonna see now is some training that I put into the dog so that they know not to rush out the door. When training your dog, it's really important to be proactive and have all of the things ready that you need for your training session. I try to make sure that I have everything plus a few extra things just in case I need them. So the first thing I want to make sure I have for this exercise particularly is I do want some training treats. They don't have to be super high value. And that being said, you may have to go higher value if you have a dog that likes to run out the door more than food. But I'm gonna use a pretty middle of the road value cookie for this exercise with my dog. So I make sure those treats are readily accessible, okay? I don't want them tied up in a pocket. I'm gonna have somebody come visit me now. I don't wanna have them in a pocket that I can't get into when my dog does something good. So I'm also going to have my training skirt on so that I have access to the cookies. If I'm training a different behavior that's not kind of an everyday life behavior, I'll just leave my cookie container up there and hold on to the cookies, but I don't want my dog to just be looking for the treats in my hand. So I will have my training skirt on so that I have easy access to my treats. If you like using a clicker, you can have your clicker with you as well so that you can click and reinforce your dog for any good behaviors. I know that sometimes the clicker can be too much to handle while you're handling your dog and your cookies and the behavior that you're looking for, so you can also just mark it with a yes. Honestly, this is a behavior that I kind of want my dog to know is what they have to do, so I'm not creating a really complex behavior. So for this, I probably wouldn't use my clicker. The last thing that I'm gonna have handy is a collar and leash. This is just a slip collar. It's big enough for his neck. It's not choking him. It's a martingale. But I have this collar ready just in case I need it. I like to train this behavior without a collar and leash if at all possible, but if my dog's really, really slimy and quick, and I'm not able to control that, I will go ahead and I will put a collar and leash on the dog. This is only to help me if I am slower than they are. This is not to use as a correction. I want the dog making this decision on their own. I just want to make sure that they can be as successful as possible without me having to wrestle them back into the house. Now that you have your training tools ready, let's start training your dog. One is if I have a dog that is not food motivated, I can also use a toy to reinforce the behavior that I'm looking for. So if I have a dog that likes to tug, when he waits in the door, which we'll see on the exercise in a little bit, I can move back in and I can tug with him as his reinforcement. If I have a dog that likes to play ball, ball's not necessarily my favorite reinforcer, but I can absolutely, when he waits in that door, toss his ball back into the house and reinforce him with his ball. If that is what your dog wants to work for, then we have to work with who we are working with, right? So if he doesn't like cookies, then I have to do something else. Another note, I am not going to ask my dog to stay at the door. This is a really easy exercise to work. So all that's gonna happen is when my dog moves forward towards this door, I'm gonna shut the door. I'm gonna open the door. When the dog moves forward, the door gets closed. Open the door. When the dog moves forward, the door gets closed. If you want to require a position, you can. So if I want my dog to have to sit at the door before I leave, that's absolutely fine. What I don't want you doing is asking sit, stay, and then opening the door. Putting a stay on this is not putting it into real life application form. I don't want to have to tell my dog stay every time I open that door, or every time a kid opens my door, or every time someone that's just coming into my house, like my friends, opens the door. They don't notice they stay, and I don't want to be having to scream it across the house. When a door opens, you automatically wait. So I'm not asking for a sit, I'm not asking for a stay. I am just waiting for my dog to not rush the door, to then open the door, and then when they move forward towards that door, I can close the door. Lisa, what are you sniffing out there? Stuff. My dogs know that when this door opens, they cannot leave. These are the good dogs.
Okay, so now I am approaching the door with Neon, and I'm gonna start the exercise right away. As you see, I didn't ask him to stay. I just opened the door, and when he moves forward towards the door, I shut the door. I did reinforce something I really shouldn't have reinforced. However, it wasn't too big of a deal. So now the exercise just continues on with me opening and shutting the door, and when the door opens and Neon moves forward, the door gets shut. He's trying to figure out what I'm asking, but as I said in my previous clip, I'm not asking him to stay or wait. As you just saw, that one was a little bit better and I almost reinforced it. I probably missed an opportune moment. However, he offered it again right away.
Yes.
At this point, it's pretty obvious that Neon has caught on that no forward motion towards the door equals food. He's a smart dog, and once I show him a behavior and he figures it out, we don't have a lot of issues. So what I decided to do next was to start proofing the exercise. And that is opening the door a little bit wider, and Visa kind of lent herself to that additional dog. So when the door got a little bit wider, you see that he struggled a little bit with the behavior, and I let him out the door. We all make mistakes once in a while, and obviously I wasn't fast enough in shutting that door for him. So now I kind of have to step back, reinforce heavily for him waiting at the door, and then I can go back to making the exercise more difficult. So now I'm going to up my criteria and work towards me being able to move towards the door. And obviously that was a pretty large step for Neon. He was not able to cope with my motion, so I have to build onto that slowly with lots of heavy reinforcement. So now I'm moving towards the door, I reinforce him, move out the door, reinforce him, move out the door a little more, come back and reinforce him. So he gets used to him waiting there while I walk out that door. So I got a little forward motion there, wasn't so happy with it, no reinforcement, door gets shut, and I'm gonna restart that exercise of me opening the door and moving out the door. And that's gonna get reinforced because he stayed like he was supposed to and didn't move forward towards the door. So now that he's doing well with me just going from a stationary position, I've decided to add some motion of everyday life. And you see that was a struggle. He moved out with me. That was too much motion for a young dog. So go back, reinforce heavily for what he's figured out, and work it again. If you guys notice, when he makes a mistake, I don't really do anything. I just don't reinforce him for the behavior. Most of the time in dog training, you do not need to correct a behavior. You just have to ignore it and not reward it. So he does not get rewarded if he moves through the door when I've asked him not to. As you can see, I marked it verbally and then just moved on. Another great exercise is to work on not having cookies on you and having your cookies off to the side. I didn't get to that at this point in training, but not having them in a skirt is a great way to start proofing the exercise for everyday application.
Very good.
I think a really large step that people miss is proofing things to every situation. So if you notice, Neon did really well when we were coming straight onto the door. He did really well when we were coming from the other side, but then when I came from the area of my bedroom in the house, that was a completely different behavior for him. He didn't generalize that well. And when I went to shut the door, I did kind of get him a little bit. That was an accident. That was not on purpose. However, when I marked it as that was incorrect, he figured it out pretty quickly. So now, as I'm moving here, I'm moving at the door abruptly instead of moving at the door slowly. It's just another way to proof the exercise.
So, as you can see, Neon caught on to this exercise extremely fast. And while he still needs a lot of work on manners, this exercise is an easy exercise to train your dog. What you have to make sure of is that you continue repeating this. You can't just train it one time and expect it to stick. If you just train it one time, it's going to go away, I promise. So what you have to do is you have to practice this. You have to practice this a few times a day, a couple times a week, and then you'll have a dog that willingly stays at the door. If you watched my video, I was also rewarding Visa for waiting at the door. She knows this exercise. She's 12 years old. She's done this for a really long time. However, it's not bad to continue to reinforce something that you like. So dogs always do what's rewarding to them. So if it's rewarding to run out the door, they're gonna wanna do that. If it's rewarding to stay inside and get paid, they're gonna do that. So remember, reward heavily, show them that's what you want, work it with motion, work it with real life experience, work it by the dog by themselves, and also work it with the other dogs. In a couple of weeks' time, you'll have a dog that willingly waits at the door for you, and you can bring your groceries in and out with no issue.